All right, you ready to dive into something completely different today? We're talking Korean drinking culture.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you might have caught glimpses of this in K-dramas or something,
Right.
but we're going way beyond the screen here, going deep to uncover what's really going on.
And it's really interesting. I think a lot of Westerners, they fixate on soju, but Korean drinking culture is so much more than that.
Okay, so let's get the real deal. What kind of sources do we have to work with today?
Well, we've got a fascinating excerpt that really breaks down the nuances of Korean drinking culture.
Okay.
And to add another layer, we'll be looking at Rosé's song APT, which actually features a Korean drinking game in it.
A drinking game and a pop song. Okay, now you've got my attention.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a really interesting juxtaposition. We'll get into that later. But first, let's set the stage. Did you know that in 2011, Soju was the world's most consumed spirit?
Really?
And get this, it was primarily drunk in Korea.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's a lot of soju. I guess that hints at how big drinking is over there, huh?
It's not just big, it's practically woven into the fabric of their society, Think of it as a social lubricant in a high-pressure environment.
Oh, okay.
Korea is known for its intense work culture, and alcohol plays a significant role in how people unwind and connect.
Okay, so it's more than just knocking back a few drinks after work.
Right.
It sounds like there's a deeper social element at play.
Absolutely. And that brings us to hosik, which are basically mandatory work dinners.
Mandatory. Wow, so it's part of the job description.
In a way, yes. These dinners aren't just about letting loose. They're about building relationships with colleagues, strengthening bonds, and even navigating those complex hierarchical structures within Korean companies.
It's interesting to think about that because here, office happy hours are usually optional, but I can see how in a culture that places a high value on respect and seniority, those shared drinking experiences could play a crucial role.
Exactly. It's about solidifying connections and showing respect to superiors. And within those hosik gatherings, there are often drinking games, which might surprise some people.
Wait, even drinking games have etiquette. That's a new one for me.
Oh, absolutely. Take, for example, the game APT, which is featured in Rosé's song. It's a simple game where you stack hands based on a chosen number, and whoever's hand ends up on top has to drink.
Okay, I can see how that could get pretty rowdy after a few rounds.
It can be. But even in that playful setting, the game reinforces those Korean social dynamics. The act of stacking hands subtly acknowledges seniority, even if it's just for a moment.
So it's a fun way of reinforcing those social cues and hierarchies. I guess you could say even when Koreans are letting loose, they're still very aware of their social standing.
That's a great observation. And this awareness extends beyond social interactions. It even impacts the economy.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the article mentions that Korea has a massive $288 million market for hangover remedies. That's a staggering number.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks volumes about the sheer scale of alcohol consumption in the country.
$288 million. Wow. That's mind-blowing. It sounds like drinking is big business over there. But I imagine there's a flip side to that too, right?
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
While the alcohol industry undoubtedly boosts the Korean economy, there are also growing concerns about the impact on public health.
Yeah.
The World Health Organization has actually reported some worrying statistics about liver cirrhosis and alcohol-related traffic accidents in Korea.
Makes sense. You can't have that level of alcohol consumption without some consequences. It makes you wonder, is there a push for more responsible drinking habits, or is it just too deeply ingrained in the culture to change?
That's a really complex issue. It's not just about individual choices. It's about a complex interplay of cultural norms, economic factors, societal pressures.
Right.
And this is where Rosé's song APT comes into play.
Yes. The drinking game pop song. It's interesting how something like a K-pop song can actually spark a conversation about these deeper issues.
It's become a bit of a cultural bridge, hasn't it?
Yeah.
On one hand, you have Westerners who might see a song about a drinking game and be concerned about the message it sends, particularly to younger audiences. But on the other hand, it provides a glimpse into a cultural practice that's been a part of Korean society for generations.
I can see both sides. I mean, growing up here, we were always told to be careful with alcohol. But in Korea, it seems like it's almost a rite of passage. It's part of how they bond and socialize.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily about promoting excessive drinking, but about showcasing a cultural reality.
Hmm.
And the music video for APT actually focuses more on the fun, convivial aspect of the game.
Right.
You see friends laughing, connecting, enjoying each other's company.
Mhm.
It's less about getting drunk and more about strengthening social bonds.
That's a good point. Yeah, I remember watching the music video, and it definitely had a lighthearted, playful vibe. It wasn't like some crazy out of control party scene.
Right. And that's why it's so important to approach this topic with nuance and understanding. We can't simply impose our own cultural values on another culture.
Yeah.
Instead, we should try to appreciate the historical context, the social significance, and the unique ways in which alcohol is integrated into their lives.
So how does knowing all this about Korea's drinking culture change the way we think about our own relationship with alcohol?
That's a fantastic question. And it's something I hope our listeners will ponder. Do we see alcohol as a social lubricant, a way to de-stress, a celebratory drink, or something to be wary of?
It definitely makes you think twice about those assumptions we often have about other cultures.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this exploration of Korean drinking culture has revealed just how deeply ingrained it is in their society. We've looked at Hosek, drinking games, the economic impacts, and even how it's portrayed in pop culture.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface. What else is there to discover about this? You know, I'm really struck by how much meaning is packed into even the simplest actions in Korean drinking culture. Like we touched on it earlier, but those etiquette rules around pouring drinks are fascinating. Can we dive into that a bit more?
Absolutely. It's a perfect example of how seemingly mundane gestures can hold deep cultural significance. Remember how the article mentioned it's considered taboo to pour your own drink?
Yeah, and you have to use two hands when pouring for someone else, especially if they're older or higher up in the hierarchy.
It's all about showing deference and respect. Korean culture places a strong emphasis on honoring elders and acknowledging social hierarchy. Using two hands when pouring a drink for someone senior to you is a way of visually demonstrating that respect.
It's like a physical manifestation of their values,
Yeah.
and pouring your own drink would be like saying, I don't care about these social norms.
Exactly. It could be perceived as a sign of disrespect or a lack of awareness. These subtle cues might seem insignificant to an outsider, but within Korean society, they're incredibly important.
Okay, that makes the whole Hosek thing even more understandable now. It's not just about having a few drinks with colleagues. It's about navigating these intricate social dynamics.
Precisely. It's a way of reinforcing social cohesion within the workplace, showing respect to superiors, and building camaraderie with colleagues. And even in more relaxed settings, like when playing drinking games, those social hierarchies are still at play.
It all ties together, doesn't it? From the etiquette of pouring drinks to those mandatory work dinners and even the drinking games, it's clear that alcohol plays a significant role in shaping Korean social interactions.
And I think that's the key takeaway here. It's about understanding that every culture has its own unique relationship with alcohol. What might seem strange or even worrisome to an outsider can actually be a deeply meaningful and integral part of social life in another context.
It's a good reminder to not judge too quickly. We tend to view things through the lens of our own experiences, but this deep dive has really broadened my perspective.
I'm glad to hear that. And that's ultimately the goal of these explorations, isn't it? To challenge our assumptions, expand our understanding of the world, and appreciate the diverse ways in which people live and connect with each other.
Absolutely. So to our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of cultures around us. We've only just scratched the surface of Korean drinking culture today, and there's a whole universe of cultural practices and traditions waiting to be discovered.
Well said. And as always, if this deep dive has sparked any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Keep those conversations going.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.